A remote stretch of Chaco Canyon, long known for its ancient ruins and restricted access zones, has become the focus of global attention after it was uncovered that there's a hidden UFO project there. It started as an unassuming discovery by hikers, but unfolded into an investigation involving sealed chambers, unexplained technology, and symbols. Within days, the NSA seized and sealed the site. Now, scientists are racing to interpret what was found, as this might hold major implications for humanity.
Deep in the desert of New Mexico lies an ancient enigma that defies explanation.
In 1972, 3 hikers found a hidden room carved into the walls of Chaco Canyon. Outside, the desert baked at over 100 degrees. Inside, the chamber stayed at a cool 72. Artifacts littered the floor: pottery, tools, weapons. Everything dated to the 8th century, except one object: a compass-like device etched with unknown symbols, made from an alloy that wouldn't exist for another 1,000 years. Within 48 hours, the NSA seized the site. It was sealed and labeled Project Ancient Arrow. 21 years later, a collapse revealed the truth. This wasn't just a room. It was an entrance. In the summer of 1972, 3 hikers in remote northern New Mexico made what would become a legend, not in the dusty textbooks of archaeology, but in fringe lore and secret history conspiracy. Wandering through Chaco Canyon, a vast and enigmatic landscape already known to scholars as a center of ancient Puebloan culture, they stumbled upon something that they definitely didn't expect to be there. Hidden behind a sandstone wall in the relentless desert heat, they thought that they would find the ruins of pottery and stone tools that defined Chaco's known past. But instead, what they saw was a perfectly carved room whose walls seemed to be strangely smooth and modern. Amid ordinary artifacts dated by experts to the 8th century, the hikers found one object that defied explanation. It was a compass-like device engraved with unfamiliar symbols and fashioned from an alloy that shouldn't have existed for another 1,000 years. But before they knew it, it didn't take more than 48 hours for the National Security Agency to arrive, cordon off the site, and classify it as Project Ancient Arrow, sealing it from public view and scientific scrutiny. Chaco Canyon itself is no stranger to mystery. Long before the 20th century, ancestral Puebloan peoples built monumental great houses, roads aligned with solstices, and intricate ceremonial spaces across the high desert of northwest New Mexico. In the public, the canyon's documented artifacts instead include pottery, stone tools, and ceremonial objects that have been excavated and preserved by the National Park Service. But they continue to keep the secret chamber hidden from the world. This would later become an archaeological mystery, with hidden chambers, strange symbols, and government cover-ups. Soon after the 3 hikers had uncovered Chaco Canyon, rock slides occurred in the region, and that revealed that there was more underground than they would have ever guessed. Decades after the 3 hikers stumbled upon a mysterious sealed chamber deep in the canyon's labyrinth on sandstone walls, a dramatic shift in the landscape revealed something even more extraordinary. In the early 1990s, a powerful series of rock slides peeled away ancient layers of cliff and debris, exposing an entrance long hidden from view. At first, it seemed like a simple cave mouth, but after all the debris had cleared away, it revealed a spiral-shaped passage bored deep into the living stone. The passageway unfolded like a spiral staircase made of rock, coiling upward through the heart of the canyon wall. Along its helical corridor, there were 23 distinct chambers, each branching off with precision and purpose. Inside, there were shocking artifacts, many of which emitted strange symbols and glowed with unfamiliar energy. The world had realized that what they had discovered was far beyond the ancient Puebloan culture related to Chaco's ruins. They had found something so much more. News of the shocking findings took this site away from archaeologists and explorers, and instead into the hands of national intelligence and secret organizations who wanted to find out what these strange artifacts were. Ahead of this research was the Advanced Contact Intelligence Organization, or ACIO, a secretive arm within the broader National Security Agency structure. ACIO took charge of the excavation and research. But this wasn't just another archaeological team. Instead, it consisted of a team of specialists that were experienced in deciphering mysterious technologies and encrypted symbols. Their mission was to document, understand, and, if possible, harness all the knowledge that lay within those rock-hewn walls. Within the spiral's chambers, walls polished to an almost metallic sheen bore inscriptions that seemed to be embedded into the stone itself. They found star charts, musical constructs, and pigments, all that didn't seem human-made. It was unidentified by any known natural process, hinting at a sophistication that challenged every assumption about human history. As ACIO scientists pressed deeper into the spiral and its secrets, they uncovered some strange technological items that raised many questions for their research. Deep within the twisting corridors of what became known as Project Ancient Arrow, scientists uncovered artifacts that stretched the boundaries of imagination and technology. When rock slides revealed a spiral system of 23 interconnected chambers carved into the very heart of a New Mexico canyon, the scientific team sent to investigate by the ACIO expected relics that would deepen understanding of ancient cultures. Instead, they found objects that looked, felt, and behaved like nothing the archaeological world has ever encountered before. And at the apex of it all was a singular, bewildering piece of technology. Each chamber was meticulously catalogued, and its contents painstakingly examined. Painted walls bore cryptic glyphs that seemed more like encoded blueprints than decorative art, while metallic and crystalline objects hummed with an eerie presence, meaning they weren't looking at just simple antiques. These artifacts defied normal classification, combining elements of advanced engineering, unknown materials, and undecipherable symbolic structures that held scientists and technicians captivated for many months. But perhaps the most surprising find was in Chamber 23, a small, disc-shaped object, roughly the size and thickness of what would later be recognized as an optical disc. Unlike a normal compact disc or data storage medium, this artifact was neither fully glass nor wholly crystalline. Its surface appeared smooth and opaque until examined under specific wavelengths of light, at which point thousands of three-dimensional symbols seemed to glow and dance across its form. This meant something that scientists had feared. There was probably encoded information embedded deep inside this disk. For many months, ACIO's top cryptographers and quantum computing teams tried to access the disk's contents. Standard decryption tools failed repeatedly to understand what the disk held, and even the most sophisticated algorithms. Its design mocked every known digital logic, leading researchers to suspect that the disk did not simply store information. Instead, the disk was the information itself. The main theory was that the symbols themselves weren't a language in the traditional sense, but a system of instructions. It was more like a multi-dimensional archive waiting for the correct key to unlock its secrets. The enigmatic optical disc in Chamber 23 became the main point of the investigation. But while scientists were looking into this, two other students found another artifact. In the summer of 1996, long after scientists and government agents had mapped the spiral chambers deep within Chaco Canyon's rock, two college students hiking near the edge of the ancient site stumbled upon something unexpected. They didn't believe it when they found an artifact unlike anything they had seen before. Roughly the size of a shoebox and etched with swirling gold and silver patterns, the object lay partially buried in the sand. Its surface was covered in strange symbols that seemed to intertwine and pulse with an almost alive energy. As a student reached down to lift up this mysterious object, they suddenly experienced something strange that they would remember forever. In an instant, both collapsed to their knees. They weren't exactly unconscious, but it seemed like they had been transported to another place. Their minds opened into a vivid, lifelike vision of the chambers buried deep within the canyon. That was the very canyon that had been discovered years earlier. They could actually see themselves walking through the network of spiral corridors, feel the cool stone underfoot, and hear the echo of their footsteps in galleries that had, until that moment, remained inaccessible. Ancient symbols glowed on the walls, chest-deep within the labyrinth, and every detail of the site came alive in their shared inner sight. Now, the experience lasted only seconds in the desert sun, but to the students, it felt like hours. When they emerged from the strange place they were transported to, They were completely shocked by the encounter they had, especially since it was so clear. To make the experience even stranger, they didn't take any drugs. They weren't under any external influence. The artifact simply seemed to connect them to something far beyond ordinary perception. When they finally regained composure, the students carefully wrapped the artifact and brought it to their archaeology professor, certain that they had stumbled upon a discovery of extraordinary significance. However, when the professor touched the object himself, nothing happened. There were no visions or sensations, only the cold weight of the enigmatic item in his hands. As scientists investigated the situation, they had one idea, which was that the artifact had triggered proximity-based effects. That meant that the strange visions could only manifest near the original site where its symbolic resonance was strongest. Now, this meant that the canyon and its buried chambers had a deeper, experiential dimension, and this hinted at unexpected depths awaiting to be discovered. With the advancements of technology, experts have been able to decode symbols and eventually unlock the disk. Dr. Jameson Nuda was not your typical linguist, but he was the ACIO's premier codebreaker, a specialist in deciphering enigmatic symbols and impossible technologies. When the optical disc from Chamber 23 first arrived in his lab, it was inscrutable. At first, it looked like some kind of data medium, but conventional lasers, electron microscopes, and every standard decryption tool in the NSA's arsenal failed to reveal even a hint of readable information. Now, only when they viewed it under specific wavelengths did thousands of strange, three-dimensional symbols emerge on its surface. These were the same glyphs found throughout the spiral chambers. For almost 2 years, Nuda grappled with the disk. The symbols weren't simply a language, but appeared to be instructions woven into multi-layered patterns, defying every known linguistic framework. The standard computers and even the NSA's most powerful processors sat idle as the data resisted every attempt at interpreting the code. ACIO's quantum computer, Z, built with advanced alien-driven architecture, made terrestrial supercomputers seem like pocket calculators. Yet even Z stalled against the disk's complexities. The breakthrough came not through raw computing power, but through pattern recognition. Nuda noticed that the symbols correlated with unique glyphs painted on the chamber walls, with each chamber containing a single, distinct sign. By mapping these symbols to an ordered sequence, like treating them as a structured key, he was able to unlock the disk's interface with Z. When they finally arranged the symbols from Chamber 1 through Chamber 23, it acted as an ancient passphrase that awakened the dormant data. When Z finally roared to life, it produced more than 8,000 pages of encoded information spanning texts, diagrams, star maps, genetic sequences, and philosophical treatises, all with translations in dozens of languages. They discovered a message hidden for centuries, which introduced them to the Wingmakers. When Dr. Jameson Nuda and his team finally cracked the enigma of the optical disc from Chamber 23 deep within Chaco Canyon, what emerged was a message from the Wingmakers, beings who identified themselves as the creators of the site and custodians of a future humanity's deepest knowledge. Now, according to the decoded materials, the Wingmakers were not exactly distant extraterrestrials, but rather they were humans from roughly 750 years in the future who had mastered technologies of consciousness, genetics, and interdimensional communication. These future humans placed artifacts and encoded messages in hidden sites across the Earth as part of a long-term plan to guide the evolution of their ancestors and protect the genetic heritage of the human species. The disk's vast contents included tens of thousands of pages of philosophy, poetry, scientific diagrams, star maps, and genetic schematics. It revealed that humanity was facing an existential challenge from a synthetic race known as the Animu, a machine-based species driven by the goal of acquiring human DNA as a means to attain higher states of existence. Now, this looming threat didn't come as an overt invasion, but through subtle infiltration, often under the guise of benevolent aid. Within this future timeline, the Animus were depicted as seeking to co-opt human genetics for their evolutionary needs, willing to manipulate or absorb the human genotype itself. To counter this threat, the Wingmakers outlined two complementary strategies. One centered on biological empowerment, which is the activation of dormant potentials within human DNA that would render humanity unharvestable by the Animus. The materials described a symbolic 24th chromosome, a latent genetic capacity tied to heightened consciousness and advanced perception that could be awakened through practices such as meditation and focused awareness. Now, as more individuals activated these deeper layers of genetic potential, humanity as a whole would shift into a new evolutionary phase, beyond the reach of those synthetic adversaries. Now, along with the genetic transformation, the Wingmakers' wisdom spoke of the rise of global cultural cohesion and a shift in human identity. That was when the NASA experts found something even more shocking in the caves: evidence of time travel technology. By the late 1990s, as ACIO scientists began to unlock the secrets of the spiral chambers deep within Chaco Canyon, two powerful currents ran through the agency's leadership. One was pushing toward technological mastery of time itself, and the other toward a far subtler evolution of human consciousness. Now, at the heart of this debate, there was a question of how best to defend humanity against threats suggested by the Wingmakers' ancient message. Within ACIO, a covert faction known as a Labyrinth Group had been formed under the leadership of a mysterious figure known only as 15. This group focused on developing bland state technology, a form of time travel that wasn't merely observational but interactive, capable of altering past events to reshape the future. With decades of classified work behind them and support from other secret systems, they pursued BST as the ultimate defense. Basically, if humanity could go back in time and adjust critical events, perhaps the existential challenge that was foreseen in the Wingmakers' materials could be prevented before it ever unfolded. Yet, as Nuda spent years translating the Wingmakers' disc, immersing himself in their philosophy, cosmology, and encoded warnings, he felt a shift within himself. The more he decoded, the more the emphasis on inner transformation and consciousness resonated with him, suggesting that evolution of the human mind and spirit might be the true weapon against future threats. Now, this perspective clashed with the Labyrinth Group's technological agenda, which treated consciousness as something to be measured, manipulated, or bypassed with tools like BST. Nuda's deepening alignment with the Wingmakers' message didn't go unnoticed. Within the ACIO hierarchy, anyone seen as divergent from the organization's strategic path, especially one sympathetic to the idea that inner evolution could outweigh brute technological power, was perceived as a security risk. The looming consequence was a memory restructuring procedure, an internal ACIO protocol designed to erase unapproved experiences and allegiances from personnel records. Nuda decided to find the truth rather than remain oblivious to what really existed. To make things even more mysterious, a newly surfaced photograph that was taken near Chaco Canyon has reignited long-standing mysteries surrounding the remote New Mexico region, long associated with unexplained discoveries and classified activity. The image started circulating among researchers before spreading more widely online, and it seems to show a disc-shaped craft resting low among dense trees, partially obscured by foliage, as if it were deliberately hidden from view. The shocking UFO in the photograph has a smooth, symmetrical saucer-like form with a slightly domed upper surface and a flat, circular base. What immediately stands out is what the craft doesn't have. There are no visible propellers, jet intakes, exhaust ports, or wings, or control surfaces that you would expect from any known human aircraft. The exterior seems to be seamless, metallic, and uniform, with no rivets or panel lines that we usually find in standard aviation technology. As you now know, Chaco Canyon has been the center of mystery for decades, ever since reports emerged in the 1970s of sealed chambers, unusual artifacts, and quick federal intervention following the private discoveries. Now that NASA's secret UFO project in Chaco Canyon has been discovered, it has shocked the world, adding another dimension to the narrative that has been kept out of public view for a very long time. The photograph's muted colors and slight grain suggest it may have been taken years ago, possibly before the era of modern digital enhancement. Trees in the foreground partially obscure the craft, lending weight to claims that it was concealed intentionally, either by natural growth over time or by deliberate placement in a remote area unlikely to be encountered. The government has not issued any statement about the image, but there are many records that reveal that there's something happening in Chaco Canyon, way more than archaeological needs. Ever since the secret of the Wingmakers was found in the Chaco Canyon by scientists and students digging into the cave, there have been two sides to the story. Some say it's just a myth, while others believe that it's true, only covered up by the government. The story of the Wingmakers, rooted in the hidden depths of Chaco Canyon, occupies a unique space where mystery, spirituality, and human aspiration come together. It began as a classified discovery tied to ancient chambers and encoded artifacts, but eventually became something even more shocking. When the news surfaced online, it seemed more like a cosmic story or something out of a sci-fi movie than a factual report. It was meant to be a sealed government secret, but it evolved into a living body of teachings that reached a global audience almost overnight. As the story spread, so did its forms of expression. Websites appeared featuring artwork said to originate from the chambers, music designed to attune listeners to higher states of awareness, and philosophical texts exploring the nature of consciousness, time, and human potential. These materials were eventually organized into collections, programs, and products that allow people to engage with the Wingmakers narrative, not just as a story, but as a personal journey. Now that the secrets of Chaco Canyon have been revealed, there remains one question. Is this a myth, a hoax, or a real-life government conspiracy hidden for years? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.